Hello, and welcome to my presentation about the Paris Agreement. The Paris Agreement builds upon the Convention and for the first time brings all nations into a common cause to undertake ambitious efforts to combat climate change and adapt to its effects, with enhanced support to assist developing countries to do so. As such, it charts a new course in the global climate effort. The Paris Agreement's central aim is to strengthen the global response to the threat of climate change by keeping a global temperature rise this century well below 2 degrees Celsius, above pre-industrial levels, and to pursue efforts to limit the temperature increase even further to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Additionally, the agreement aims to strengthen the ability of countries to deal with the impacts of climate change. To reach these ambitious goals, appropriate financial flows, a new technology framework, and an enhanced capacity building framework will be put in place, thus supporting action by developing countries and the most vulnerable countries, in line with their own national objectives. The agreement also provides for an enhanced transparency of
blah 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 blah.
To be fair, the Paris Agreement in its idea is a beautiful idea. However, for the amount of cuts we are making, the goal is 2 degrees. 2 degrees, people. I mean, come on, what's 2 degrees?
I don't know about you, but I enjoy cost-to-benefit analysis. We would have to regulate and slow production of many things, and in doing these things will cause a strict observance on other countries, and will in turn raise tensions. Creating a bridge that isn't sturdy is much worse than no bridge at all, because it gives false security.
Hey, butthead! This is our presentation. Every degree counts and should be counted as a win. If the people before us really cared about those 2 degrees, we wouldn't be as far up the creek as we are now.
But what are those 2 small degrees going to do? 60 degrees to 62 doesn't bother me too much. I mean, come on guys, again, 60 to 62. I mean, it's the same temperature pretty much.
But in the grand scheme of things, saving 2 degrees every year could be monumental. And scientists say that unless we curb global warming emissions, average U.S. temperatures could increase by up to 10 degrees Fahrenheit over the next century. And if we have a chance to curb that and right the wrongs we have made over the years, why wouldn't we take that shot? The Paris Climate Accord was designed to prevent the average global surface temperature from warming beyond 1.5 degrees Celsius beyond pre-industrial levels. Warming beyond that danger point has been predicted to bring about significant rise in sea level, longer droughts, and greater severe weather.
It seems to me that those are just predictions. There is actually no real way for us to know if it will even be that bad.
Plus, that is the hope of the Paris Accord. In the end, we don't even know if we can accomplish that, or if there will be any immediate consequences if we don't.
But the more important thing would be to not test those limits, because to see how far a rubber band can stretch, you have to break it. I don't want to break this rubber band, and we can't just assume that it won't help. We have to be hopeful and get this done.
That may be true, but in the end, the Paris Agreement is a peer pressure arrangement. We can do our part without being a part of the agreement.
This decision was motivated by a reassertion of American sovereignty, Trump said during a speech that he was elected to represent the citizens of Pittsburgh, not Paris.
But that is the same guy, President Trump, who has a history of skepticism towards human-induced climate change. In 2012, Trump tweeted that global warming was a hoax perpetuated by the Chinese, promised to exit the Paris Agreement on campaign trail, and repeatedly asserted that environmental regulations cost American jobs in the energy sector.
One of President Trump's primary stated reasons for withdrawing from the Paris Climate Accords was that it disadvantaged the United States and American taxpayers to the exclusive benefit of other countries.
But California Governor Jerry Brown said that withdrawing from the agreement would actually cost American jobs.
Who the heck is Jerry Brown? He sounds like Charlie Brown's cousin. He has no merit for anything he says. I thought Arnold Schwarzenegger was the governor of California anyway.
Truthfully, we should never have been entered into the Paris Agreement legally. The Obama skipped out on taking to the Senate.
And if you break it down, the Paris Agreement is a treaty more than anything else, really.
But
Butts are for sitting.
And treaties are for Senate.
well,
and wells are for water.
And the C-175 is meant for deciding whether or not international affairs should be dealt with as a treaty, which must go through Senate.
Let's take a look at those. The extent to which the agreement involves commitments or risks affects the nation as a whole.
I would say that cutting down on the energy usage in the U.S. affects the nation as a whole.
Quick! Look at these poor animals!
And now you guys get to hear me talk about 10 facts that are pretty interesting, I'd actually say. Number 1. Average temperatures have climbed 1.4 degrees Fahrenheit around the world since 1880. Much of this in recent decades, according to NASA's Goddard Institute for Space Studies. Number 2. The rate of warming is increasing. The 20th century's last 2 decades were the hottest in 400 years and possibly the warmest for several millennia. According to a number of climate studies and the U.S. nation's Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, reports that 11 of the past 12 years are among the dozen warmest since 1850. Number 3. Glaciers and mountain snows are rapidly melting. For example, Montana's Glacier National Park now has only 27 glaciers versus 150 in 1910. In the northern hemisphere, thaws also come a week earlier in spring and freezes begin a week later. Number 4. The Paris Climate Accord is a voluntary, non-binding agreement and allows participant countries to set their own carbon emission goals, deadlines, and carbon reduction strategies. Under former President Barack Obama and former Secretary of State John Kerry, the United States agreed to reduce emissions by approximately 26% by 2025. Number